With no time trial to determine the starting order, competitors were grouped together according to championship points and then drew up. KTM's Jeffrey Wallater is one of the most consistent riders on the scene and was being chased hard by fellow AGA Panasonic Castrol KTM team rider Carl Leroux, who was on one of the bigger 360cc versions. After a series of bone-breaking crashes over the past 2 years, Errol Dalton seems to have at last regained the form that took him to victory here in 1995. Panasonic Russell Campbell Racing's Greg Aspinall hasn't been racing in the Off-Road Championship for long, but the former motocrosser has quickly established himself as one of the front runners. With the tracks between trees being very narrow, passing any other competitor was never going to be easy. Shell Honda rider Grant Broomfield picks his spot before passing 200 class quad leader John Craig Costello. Once clear, he quickly pulls away and makes it all look very smooth. Watch Peter Malan fighting his Kawasaki KDX 200 through the soft sand, and you can see the effort required. Some clever fuel tank strategy by the FMF Kawasaki team saw Clayton Enslin at the head of the bike field, followed by Graham McLaughlin on the Shell Honda. Pre-race favourite Alfie Cox had dropped back after falling into a hole in the notorious riverbed section, but was clearly in a hurry to get to the service where proper repairs could be carried out to his motor, which had overheated as a result of a punctured radiator. These refuel points provide for some interesting insights into race strategy, as one false move can result in fuel being spilt, and with bikes being marginal on fuel, this can be catastrophic. Darrell Curtis loses little time. Showing that he can still mix it with the youngsters was Jeremy Davies, who's won this event many times when it was still based in the Freiburg area. Spencer Creel was another rider still in touch with the leaders, and he leaves the refuel in a hurry, but he's not quick enough, and he's forced to eat dust from one of the Lada Niva entries. Also in a hurry is Wayne Farmer, who has a narrow advantage over rival Rian Finikak in the battle for the 200 class honours. Errol Dalton shows exactly how fast the pace is as he flashes past the camera. It was like the breakfast run on sand as bike after bike flash past in quick succession. Greg Aspinall lifts his front wheel and is followed by Evan Pretorius, Quinton Milton, Carl Leroux, and a choked quad rider, Johan van Lille, sucks in the Kalahari sand. It's interesting to compare riders' fortunes as they arrive at service. Finikak is in a strong position and wants his face washed, while teammate Chris Dodd's race was brief.
Well, bad start. At least it happened at the start of the race and then towards the end. 20 k's out, hit a ledge. Back wheel kicked up and I went over the handlebars and I landed on my shoulder and broke my collarbone. So yeah, I guess I'll be helping.
As expected, McLaughlin ended the day at the top of the motorcycle timesheets after Enslin's fuel plan backfired and he ran dry. Dalton's good ride continued and he was second, with more than 3 minutes in hand over Davies, which gave the Shell Honda team first, second and third. Finikak had a huge lead in the 200 class and was giving the 250 and 500 riders a good run for their money.
This morning it was very dusty, very dusty. It's the dustiest race I've had in a long time. All the guys took a lot of strain. I think there were a couple of accidents. I think this morning we all just took it a bit easier to get through the dust. Once we got going in the sandy sections, it wasn't that dusty, and I just pushed hard the whole day. When some of the top guys had a bit of problems, I saw that, and I saw a gap, and I just thought, well, if I push hard, I can make quite a lead.
Dubai resident David McBride was invited to this race by Alfie Cox and gives us an insight into the racing over there.
Yeah, it's very dusty, and we always go in front of the cars. We don't have to put up with dust from cars or four-wheelers or anything like that. We've got no bushes, and it's a lot more hillier, over hills and just raw dunes, like 2,000–3,000 feet up.
The final day of racing saw competitors tackle the previous day's route in a reverse direction. There was another service opportunity after the loop, and then it was off to Gaborone, where the first competitors were expected. Back to the two-wheelers, and McLaughlin had set a tremendous pace.
I'm happy about the starting position. I'm going to go as fast as I can. I'm not too happy. We're a bit close to the quad, so there's really going to be dust early this morning. But luckily we all have to have the same dust, so I think I'm going to try and use it to my advantage.
He did just that and virtually paralysed the opposition with his pace. Behind the Bloemfontein rider was Dalton, who was riding with new confidence after his good run the previous day. Jeremy Davies was going like a rocket, but Van Niekerk was riding for a class win and wasn't chasing the bigger engine bikes ahead of him.
Well, I think I got a bit of a disadvantage this morning. The first few Ks is pretty fast and bigger bikes might catch up to me.
The next KTM team rider was Carl Leroux on the 362 stroke, and he was being chased by the similarly mounted Evan Pretorius, who was still holding on to a top 10 position. Wayne Farmer wasn't far behind on his 200 Kawasaki and was in a position to pounce should the class leader Van Niekerk encounter problems, although Spencer Creel was catching him. But sadly, Creel had to retire with a broken gearbox. Elmer Simons is another of the young Turks that have come up through the ranks and should go a long way. But one of the fastest of all the two-wheelers was Ensslin. He was carving through the field in a desperate attempt to make up some of the time he'd lost by running out of fuel. Tom Klaassen couldn't stay with him, and neither could the experienced Hilton Hayward on the Schimwel's Yamaha 4-stroke. But without doubt, it was Cox who was quickest of all in the morning. He'd started 17th and had already made up 2 places. As each kilometre was completed, so McLaughlin was extending his lead, and the Shell Connex Lesotho office equipment team could sense victory and the double as Dalton now looked secure in 2nd place. Davies had retired his big Honda earlier in the morning, and a fine ride from Greg Aspinall saw him move up to 3rd. Van Niekerk was riding with a maturity that belied his youth and was focused on the 200 class victory. Ensslin was a joy to watch as he wrung every ounce of performance out of the FMF Kawasaki. As the riders tackled the last leg, he was closing on Van Niekerk. Also riding as though there was no tomorrow was Cox, who was now looking at a top 10 finish. Not bad considering he was 17th at the start of the day. The rider he wanted to catch was Carl Leroux, who was holding a steady 6th. As expected, McLaughlin arrived home to win his 2nd successive desert race as Dalton made it a Honda 1-2 by taking 2nd, albeit 22 minutes behind. A brilliant ride from Aspinall saw him take 3rd ahead of Van Niekerk and Ensslin. Leroux was well pleased with his 6th place as Cox climbed to 8th, and Wayne Farmer was 10th overall and the 2nd 200cc rider home.
I pushed hard the whole day. This morning when I pulled off, I thought I had a good chance, and I definitely I just pushed hard the whole day. I think the other guys are quite a way back. There's a couple of cars 2 cars where I got lucky. They wrong slotted because I was in the dust for about 15 minutes and they wrong slotted and I got past them.